So if I push play on any time in this studio today, I'm going to go right at it, man. I'm hitting the jugular. What's up, everybody? This is Doug Jenkins. I'm back with a video. I've had so much confusion, and I don't know if it's an epidemic going around. And it's okay. I might be part of the problem, but I want to help solve this. That there's a huge difference between mixing and mastering. I think today's day and age, we all sort of assume mixing is mastering and mastering is mixing. And well, why does some guys do mastering, some guys don't do mastering, some guys only do mixing, some guys do mixing and mastering. Fortunately, I like to do, if I'm going to do the mix, I'm going to do the mix. And I will do all the mixes, and then I'll finally just leave the project alone for a while, then do the master. Maybe 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later. Just time to break off of the thing, But I'm going to show you the steps. We're going to zoom in on the screen here, and I'm going to show you what mixing is. Mixing is the fundamental approach of making every instrument group sound right. Every instrument in that group sound okay. Whether we're using a Neve board, an SSL board, we're using plugins in the box, but there's two variables that always have to be there. There has to be a accurate monitoring source to what we're hearing. There has to be, that includes acoustics and speaker placement and speakers and conversion. So that's all in one little group. And then there has to have that God-given creativity, oh, okay, what do we want to do with this? In this case, a gentleman gave me direction, and this is why mixing's fun. It costs more money, but this is why it's fun, okay? And I'll show you. I'm going to show you his drums, the way he sent them to me, and he actually sent this track. He's a great guy, awesome person, but he sent this track for mastering at first with these drums that I'll show you. So just keep that in mind. And what I mean by that is I have to fundamentally tell you this, whatever that meant, that most people do this, okay? They get their drums in there and they get this, and I can't fix that in mastering. I can't do what I'm about to show you. So first, to show you what mixing is, I'm going to take the dry drums, run them through the camera so you can hear them. Then I'll mute those. Then I'll send you the process drums. In this case, he wanted an 80s vibe. So check it out. And this is mixing. Remember that. Like when I put those first drums in with no verb, no effects, no fatness, no punch, no bottom end, none of that stuff. What ended up happening was they sounded really skinny and almost like trapped in the song. You couldn't make it out. The second sample, obviously, there was more sounds. Okay, that's what he had. He had these different intricate sounds and things like that, where the drums had to space out. That's not mastering. I can't do that in mastering. I have to have control over everything so I can do that. Spend a lot of time, but if you really don't know how to get that sound, this is what he paid me for. He said, I want to get this backbone foundation of an 80s song, and that was achieved in that mix. Now let's move on to mastering. Okay, I'm going to use a rock song. This was a cover tune that was, it was very popular. But mastering's a different thing. I'll show you the before and the after. Mastering's all about creating the best possible stereo image with a good mix. Now in this case, you'll hear the mix. The mix is good, but it sounds a little flat, okay? It sounds really flat, but it's not that it was a lack of mixing, a lack of equipment, a lack of tracking, a lack of the wrong musicians. It was a good put together song. So
taught me everything. Way down around Pittsburgh, around Louisiana way, lived a Cajun lady aboard the Mississippi Queen. You know she was a dancer. She moved bent around right while the rest of them dudes was getting their kicks. Gonna beg your pardon, I was getting mine. Mississippi Queen, if you know what I mean. Mississippi Queen, baby, she taught me everything.
First song was really, it was balanced well, but there was no bottom information. Like, there was none of that what we, if you open up a track on the radio, you'll hear that. Like, I know for a few months one time I was like, why is there stuff sound so good at the bottom, and I can't get my bottom to sound right. And the reason is because you're not in the right environment. You might have the perfect bottom end going on, but it's just a little off kilter and it'll screw your whole song up. That's how sensitive the bass range is. You might have one frequency in the bottom that you can't make out in your room, but it's clouding the whole entire image, and it's making a compressor pump the song too much. That's why they started doing side chains. I mean, they're like, man, we don't want any of those bass frequencies. It's screwing my song up. This is what happens in mastering at home. Mastering is the art form of the stereo track. Just like we showed you, that was a stereo track. That was not, I didn't have the track out. That was already mixed. So the guy took all that information, the kick, the snare, the hi-hats, the toms, the drums, the guitars, the vocals, and he mixed them all into one track, which is a left and right stereo track. So it's two tracks, actually. So the left stereo and the right. So when I say the two track, what I mean is left stereo, right stereo. Or you could do dual mono, which in sense, all it is doing to create an image is this side is a little different than this side. Maybe it's timing, maybe it's this. But what ends up happening is I think there is a big confusion these days about what mixing and what mastering is. And in mastering, that made a huge difference. To the people that say, oh, I don't need mastering, it doesn't help me, you've never had it done right. You know, if a guy just opens up the song and slaps a limiter on it, and for example, in the video like this, I'll take everything off. So let's take it all off. Take his mix. And I'm not going to be able to turn this up all the way, but this is a common problem if you've ran into this one. But I'll leave the limiter on, but I'll leave all the EQ and stuff off that I did. So when we hit the limiter, it sounded right. So what's going to happen in this situation is it's going to, what happens a lot of situations, by the way, is somebody hits it with a limiter and it's not right, and what ends up happening is they make it worse. So in this case, that's what's going to happen. It's going to become really, really tinny, and then all of a sudden your whole song it's ruined. Nobody wants to listen to it loud. You show up at the club, dude, everybody's like, dude, turn it off, dude. Or, man, it's just, dude, like, not cool, you know, not cool. So check this out. And I think that's one of the biggest things about mastering. Mastering is an art form. So when you heard that song after I mastered it, it sounded like the drummer was just there, dude. It's like bam, smack, da-da, da-da. And it sounded like the song was together. When I deactivated it, it's almost like the whole bottom fell out. And now it almost sounded like he was on a telephone. It was an effect in a movie or something. Very weird. It was still a solid mix, though. See, this is what I'm saying. The mix has to be right, which in this case it was right for me to master. I would give it the go-ahead. Let's roll, dude. I'll master that 9 times out of 10. Let's see what frequencies I boosted. I boosted 560 hertz, 4 dBs. I boosted 1K, 6 dBs, and then I shelved 5K, the whole entire thing, 5K and up. I did that about 3 dBs. So the whole thing had to be shaped just a little bit. So the bass went up, the mids sort of came up, and then the brightness came up, and then the whole entire high shelf came back down. So now you have this refined sound. So check it out when I do this, and then I'll end the video like that. So my name's Doug Jenkins, imixandmaster.com. Here you go, you're gonna listen to the Manly. And why am I yelling at you? Jeez.
Mississippi Queen, if you know what I mean. Mississippi Queen, she taught me everything. Way down around Pittsburgh, around Louisiana way, lived a Cajun lady, aboard the Mississippi Queen. You know she was a dancer. She moved bent over around while the rest of them dudes was getting their kicks. But I beg your pardon, I was getting mine. Mississippi Queen, if you know what I mean. Oh, this lady, she asked me if I would be her man. You know that I told her I'd do what I can to keep her looking pretty. By her dresses that shine while the rest of them dudes was making their bread. But I beg your pardon, I was losing mine.
So when you convert it to an MP3, it's still an image. And I want people to understand that's mastering what I just did. I was affecting the whole entire master bus. So if you feel confident at home, like, hey Doug, I really like my mix, I like what I'm doing, you still want to send it for mastering. That's what you want to do. But if you're like at home and you're like, dude, I can't get my drums to set right, I can't get my bass to tuck in, I can't get my vocals to sound powerful, I can't do anything, dude, this is not my thing. It's okay. Not everybody and their brother's got to be a mixing engineer. I know so many musicians, and I'll end with this, I promise. The most professional musicians I know usually allow the professional engineers to mix. And they focus on the songwriting and the creativity. And then when the mixing engineer, when they get a good one, then it's a career. It really is. So my name's Doug Jenkins. If you want to send us something, please reach out to me at Diz Mastering, D-I-Z as in zebra, mastering at yahoo.com. I had a time where my website was not transferring me my emails, and people were like all ticked off. So always get me at that. And then we can do a WeTransfer, a Dropbox, or anything, and then you can get me your stuff, and then I can give you a fair thing. Oh, and I got one more thing to say. When I was young, I had my album mastered by a professional, because I used to make records, by the way. That's why I got into this. But this gentleman charged me $2,000, and he asked me that one question, and I still think it was the right way to do it, because now I know what he means. Because how great do you want it to sound? Going to make you a lot happier when you show that to your friends, to your fans, and your fans deserve it. That's what I always say, dude. Your fans deserve to at least hear something that's even so they can turn it up and it doesn't like rip their face off. I'm out, dude.